AI agents are everywhere, automating tasks and making decisions at machine speed. But agents make mistakes. Just one rogue agent can do big damage before you even notice. Rubrik Agent Cloud is the only platform that helps you monitor agents, set guardrails, and rewind mistakes, so you can unleash agents, not risk. Accelerate your AI transformation at Rubrik.com. That's RUBRIK.com.
Streaming is changing the way we watch live sports. And your internet connection can be the difference between catching the game-winning touchdown as it happens or hearing about it from your neighbor's cheers. That's why Comcast is building the network of the future. Using cutting-edge AI and edge computing technology, we're bringing fans closer to the action in stunning high definition with ultra-low latency. It's not just fast, it's game-changing. Learn more at ComcastCorporation.com/sports.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Kilowatt, a podcast about electric vehicles, renewable energy, autonomous driving, and much, much more. My name is Bodie, and I am your host. And on today's episode, well, we're mostly going to talk about the F-150 Lightning. That should be a shock to no one. I've received several emails from folks out there in the community that have, weighed in their thoughts. And honestly, I had a whole plan that I wanted to do when it comes to, bringing those thoughts into this episode. But, there's just been a lot going on and very busy. So unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to share thoughts from folks in the community. That did lead me to an idea. What if the last show of 2025, we heard from folks in the Kilowatt community? And listen, I know plenty of you have thoughts, so why not record your thoughts and send them to me? It can be on any EV topic that you want it to be on. It could be on your thoughts on about EVs in 2025. It could be a short story on, kind of what led you to the EV universe, but becoming an EV fan. It could be thoughts on 2026. It could be thoughts on one particular story. The only thing I ask is you keep it less than 2 minutes. And I say 2 minutes because that's typically the longest I'll spend on one particular article. Obviously, there are going to be times when I spend a lot more time talking about one particular subject over another. But in general, 2 minutes is more than enough time to convey your thoughts. So if you want to take part in this, you can, if you have a fancy setup, then record into your fancy setup. If you don't have a fancy setup, that's totally fine. Most people don't. Record into the memo function on your phone and send me an email. The email is Bodie, BODIE, at 918digital.com. If the audio needs to be cleaned up a little bit to make it easier to understand, I have software. It's not magic, but I have software where we can make that better. I can remove echo. There's lots of things that I can do. All you got to do is send me preferably a WAV file, but if it's an MP3, that's okay. I'll do what I can with an MP3 as well. But I think it would be a really fun last episode of the season to kind of hear everybody's thoughts. And obviously, for the last 3 years, I believe, Steve Sheridan has put together a montage of me messing up or being silly. And he's already sent me that file, and I've listened to it. And as always, it's fantastic. And, I'd like to add more people's contributions. So in summary, give me some EV story that you want to talk about, whether that's an article, your personal EV journey, or, what you liked about 2025 or your thoughts on 2025, where you think 2026 and EVs are going. Any of those things, shoot them over to me. Less than 2 minutes. Believe me, if you're like 2 minutes isn't very long, try talking into a microphone for 2 minutes. It could be it feels like forever. I've been talking for 4 minutes and it feels like 30. So if you mess up and you're like, oh, just take this part out, I'll do all the editing. I'm not doing this to do less work at the end of the year. This will actually probably end up causing me a little bit more work, but it's a fun thing to do. And again, I do love hearing from folks. So the email is Bodie, BODIE at 918digital.com. And if you need help, just send me an email and I'll help you out. Now, before we get to our EV news, I do want to say that James over at True North EVs has a great, and I'm a little behind on James' podcast, but he has a great episode on EVs in the Canadian government and kind of how they are treating and looking at EVs, going into the future. James gets very passionate. I thoroughly enjoyed this episode. It's only about 25 minutes long. I highly suggest going and listening to True North EVs. I'll put a link in the show notes. The other thing is James is very nice, and he says at the end, he always promotes this show at the end of his episodes, which is super nice and completely unnecessary, but I love that he does it. But I'm going to be honest, early on in this podcast, when I was just trying to figure things out, James was a huge help in helping me understand how EVs work. We were, on a group chat together, and we were going back and forth. James is very knowledgeable. He's the president of the Manitoba Electric Vehicle Association. There's a lot of reasons why you should go listen to him. But first and foremost is because he's a great person. And go support James. I don't think you'll be disappointed. All right. Link in the show notes for True North EVs, just so it's easier for you to find. Now, let's go ahead and jump into our EV news. I'm going to start with the Tesla news because I only have 2 Tesla stories. First up, Tesla is testing driverless and supervisorless robotaxis in Austin. I was very snarky about this, and they're testing. There's no passengers yet, but would you look at that? They are testing at least 2 vehicles that people have seen, 2 different vehicles they're testing. So, yeah, I'll put my snarkiness and my snarky comments in my pocket, and I will just let them have their win. Next up, this is kind of cool. Tesla is offering an extended warranty on the high voltage battery and drive unit. So if your drive unit or your high voltage battery go bad, they're going to replace everything that's relevant to replace for the high voltage battery or the drive unit, or both if that's the case. What's not covered is everything else. So this is not another bumper to bumper warranty. This is only for the high voltage battery or the drive unit. It's also only available for the Model 3 and the Model Y as of right now. This is a 24-month warranty or 30,000 miles. I don't think this price is too bad, but let me know what your thoughts are. It's $2,000 US or $2,800 Canadian. Oh, by the way, it's only available in the US and Canada as of right now. And then if you want to, or you need to have service done while it's under warranty, it's a $500 deductible per visit. Now, we all know batteries can be quite expensive. We also know the drive units are also up there spendy. I don't know if they're in the tens of thousands of dollars like the battery is. That doesn't include labor, but it could be pretty expensive. So $2,000 doesn't seem bad to me, or $2,800 Canadian. But tell me what your thoughts are. Bodie, BODIE at 918digital.com. All right. I have said this a ton of times, but it's worth mentioning again because it is the one trip that I take every year for this show, is I am going to CES in 3 weeks. Super excited. I get there on Monday. I leave on Thursday. Their DTNS is having an event at Resorts World. I think it's like at 6:30 or something. If you listen to DTNS and you're in Vegas, Tom's got all that information. I do plan on being there as a fan of the Daily Tech News Show, not as a representative of Kilowatt, but if you're there and you want to hang out, I'd love to meet you. The majority of this trip is being funded by folks who support on Supercast and Patreon. And then some of the trips also being funded by the ad revenue. And then some of it's being funded by me. The hotel is paid for. The air flight is paid for. The things that I'm going to need to buy when I'm in Vegas are obviously food and Ubers, and some sort of transportation. Now, there are some buses that go from the convention center, and I'm staying near the convention center, to different hotels down the strip. So my plan is to use those whenever possible to save a little bit of money. However, they stop running at a certain time. I'm going to some media events on Monday and Tuesday, and, I got to get back, which is, on the other side of the strip. I got to get back to the other side of the strip so that I can get to my hotel and go to sleep and be rested for the next day. So, if you want to support the show and help with Vegas this year and next year, go to supportkilowatt.com. This podcast is not a moneymaker, if I'm being honest, but it is a passion that I have. It also mostly pays for itself by and large. So that is a blessing that it can do that. But yeah, just if you want to support the show, supportkilowatt.com. It'll take you to a page. You can choose Patreon or Supercast.
AI agents are everywhere, automating tasks and making decisions at machine speed. But agents make mistakes. Just one rogue agent can do big damage before you even notice. Rubrik Agent Cloud is the only platform that helps you monitor agents, set guardrails, and rewind mistakes, so you can unleash agents, not risk. Accelerate your AI transformation at Rubrik.com. That's RUBRIK.com.
There's talk in Washington about cuts to Medicare Advantage benefits that 35 million seniors count on. The No Up-Code Act would raise costs for seniors and reduce their benefits. The No Up-Code Act is a broken promise and a bad deal for seniors. Tell Congress, keep your promise and oppose cuts to Medicare. Vote no on the No Up-Code Act.
At Optum, we're transforming the pharmacy system, bringing real-time pricing transparency and saving consumers over $1 billion last year. Serving 62 million Americans, we understand behind every prescription is a person. Visit Optum.com/redefineRx to learn more.
All right, let's go into our EV news. Scout Motors, which is a VW Group company, does not want to sell its vehicles through a dealership. Volkswagen Group obviously sells its vehicles through dealerships, but Scout is Volkswagen is thinking, or wants to think, that Scout is a little bit different than some of their other brands. So Scout now has authorization to sell direct to consumers in Colorado. I 100% feel confident that dealers are going to appeal this decision, but there's some sort of board that has to approve this in Colorado, and it was like a 6-2. I don't remember what the exact number was. It was pretty overwhelming. 6-2 decision that Scout could sell direct to consumer. As always, we'll keep an eye on this story, regardless of whether or not Scout's going to need to use a dealer network. They should start selling their EVs in late 2027. Okay, now let's get to the F-150 Lightning. This is the big story, and we can pour one out for the F-150 Lightning because Ford is discontinuing the battery electric Ford F-150 Lightning. Ford announced the F-150 Lightning in 2021. Ford began production in April of 2022. And they went on sale with, deliveries to customers in May of 2022, right around that time period. Now, not a lot were actually delivered in May of 2022, June of 2022. It was a fairly low number. Chris Ashley, who's been on the show before, he does the Barbecue and Tech podcast. He's also, he does the Barbecue and Tech food truck, which is in Maryland. So if you're in Maryland, go check out Chris Ashley's food truck and say hi. Tell him we said hi. Anyway, he was one of the first folks to get the truck. We talked to him on the show with Allison Sheridan. Lot of hope back then for the F-150 Lightning. And I honestly think the Lightning is a cool truck. It's a cool EV. Ford did a lot of stuff that was smart. First of all, where they could, they used the same parts that they can use that used in the F-150 Lightning. So they got great supplier deals that way, But this was honestly only a matter of time. EV sales have slowed down. The Ford Lightning sales in particular have slowed down significantly. The Trump administration, they essentially set the penalty to $0 for automakers who make cars that pollute. So there used to be targets that these automakers had to meet, and they could meet some of those targets by selling EVs or buying regulatory credits. But essentially, legacy automakers could sell EVs at a loss and still be kind of okay because they are able to collect those regulatory credits. And plus they're dipping their toe in, they're trying the EV thing. But Ford for a while now has been lackluster when it comes to EVs. It used to be GM that was severely lagging behind, and now Ford effectively has 3 EVs. They have a commercial van here in the US, which I believe, I'm not sure if they still sell that or not, but they have that. They have the F-150 Lightning, which is no more, and the Mustang. And that's it. They're not exactly burning up the EV market with 3 vehicles, The other thing is the F-150 Lightning is expensive. Interest rates are high. So if you're going to buy one of these, you're going to be paying a lot of money in interest. You're also going to be paying a lot of money for the vehicle itself. Initially, back in 2021, Ford said the Lightning would start at $40,000. If they ever hit that price, it wasn't for very long. That would be for their Ford work truck. I think at the time it was called the WT. Now it's called the Ford Pro. Currently, the cheapest Lightning is the Ford Pro. Ford has it listed on their website for $54,000. But then when I do a build for that particular vehicle, it's $49,000. The starting range on that is 240 miles of range. Not very much. That's not great. You can get up to, I think, 320 with a bigger battery, an extended battery. And that's great. But still, that gets you into the $60,000 mark for that vehicle. Ford also, it goes all the way up to $40,000, but it's actually even more than that. If you go up to their website, it says $84,000, but then it depends on how many options you outfit it with. It could be much more than that $84,000. And then we talked about this a few weeks ago. There were 3 fires at the aluminum plant, the Novelis plant that supplies Ford its aluminum. So that was a delay, and that was on pause for that. And Ford actually lost $13 billion on EVs since 2023. They're taking a $19.5 billion charge so they can restructure. And this is an accounting thing. They're not like taking $19.5 billion and lighting it on fire, right? I've listened to enough earnings calls to feel mildly confident that Ford is admitting that they spent way too much money on EVs. The investments aren't paying off how they expected, and they're marking them as losses. But those losses don't just include EVs. There's the EVs that they have, canceled EV projects, factories that were either underused or not used at all, battery investments that aren't going to scale anymore. And then, different supplier contracts that they won't be able to fulfill because, they don't have the volume. So I'm sure there's some penalties that come with that. And then research and development, if I had to guess. I'm sure there's much, much more that I'm forgetting. Now that's the bad news. The good news, if you can call it good news, is Ford isn't completely abandoning the Lightning brand. The next Ford F-150 Lightning will be an extended range electric vehicle, which means it's going to have a gas generator that charges the battery. So the gas generator isn't going to directly supply power to the wheels. It will charge the battery. Initially, when I first saw this reported, somebody was saying that it was a diesel generator, and I was like, that's suspicious. That seems like way too much money for what that particular generator needs to do. It's not. It's a gas generator. The advantage of this is because you have the gas generator to charge the battery while you're driving, you'll get longer range. The advantage to Ford is they can put a smaller battery in the truck. You can also tow heavier loads across longer distances, which is, a big deal to people who use their truck for work. It's also a big deal if you're towing a trailer for leisure. But my friends who actually, work with their hands for a living and don't talk into a microphone like me, that's one of the things that has kept them away from EV trucks. When it comes to towing, we don't know what the weight limits will be or how far the distances are. But what we do know is Ford says that it will tow with uncompromised range and it will tow like a locomotive. So that's, insert whatever you want in terms of whatever that means. Ford also canceled an electric commercial van that was set to come out in Europe. Ford is changing the name of its Blue Oval City campus in Tennessee. It used to be called the Tennessee Electric Vehicle Center and is now renamed the Tennessee Truck Plant. And their goal is to build affordable trucks there, which you could assume they're going to be internal combustion engine trucks. Ford did say that it's still committed to the universal EV platform that they just announced a few weeks ago. And they're still committed to that $30,000 truck, which is expected to go on sale in 2027. Well, let's see here. One other thing, Ford did say also by 2030, 50% of its global sales or its global fleet will be, new sales. 50% of its sales will be hybrids, extended range electric vehicles, and EVs. Currently, it's at 17%, so it's got a little ways to go. And this may or may not be related to Ford's decision. 2 Ford dealers are accusing Ford of paying just $600 for EV battery repairs. And the dealerships are claiming that the battery repairs cost them $22,600 just for parts and labor. The dealers are claiming that they performed multiple full battery replacements and Ford reimbursed them $600 per job in most cases. One dealer reported that they completed 15 battery replacements and 13 of those were paid at $600. And and 2 of those were paid at $13,000 per battery. So a total loss on those repairs at $286,200. A second dealer had similar losses. Right now, there are only 2 dealerships that we know about that are suing Ford. But if this is happening with 2 dealerships, you can imagine that it's happening with more. So we'll keep an eye on that as we go forward. I do think that it's worth giving Ford credit for dipping their toe into electric vehicles with the F-150 Lightning. The Ford Mustang Mach-E came out first, then the Lightning. I think that a lot of legacy automakers were overly confident in how hard it was to build an EV. Ford, even with, being able to move so many parts over from the F-150, the internal combustion F-150 truck, there was still problems. And unfortunately, in 3 years, because you're not going to build the F-150 Lightning on a whole new platform in under 3 years. They really didn't make that big of a change. They decided to go with EREV. And again, I do think there's a place in the marketplace temporarily for e-revs. And actually, I've been working on a whole show about extended range electric vehicles. I've been collecting articles, and I might do that soon now that we've got this story. I've said a couple of times in recent months that I think that more and more companies are going to do this. I would not be surprised if GM comes out with a Silverado e-rev. Yes, I said Silverado. I have a friend who has a 1986 Silverado, and that's how we say it. In the GMC Sierra, I wouldn't be surprised if those didn't have e-rev versions. The Ram 1500 and obviously Scout motors with the Terra and the Traveler are going to have their Harvester brands, which are e-revs. Hyundai is working on some e-revs. If I'm going to tip my hat on the show that I'm working on about e-revs, I do think there's a market for this. I don't necessarily know that there's a reason other than making people feel more comfortable for most people to own an e-rev versus an EV. Like if my wife and I had a chance to buy a fully electric Kia Carnival van or an e-rev, I feel confident that the fully electric van would get us all the places that we needed to be. It would be much more money, but it'd get us to all the places that we need to be. In turn, I could see why somebody, especially in a family vehicle, would want to have that backup gas generator just in case. I could completely see why you'd want to do that. 700 miles for the Ford F-150 Lightning E-Rev is what they have here. My wife and I can drive in her van from Arizona to LA, drive around LA quite a bit on one tank of gas, and it's just a hybrid. So I don't know. I'm not 100% sold on E-Revs, I guess is what I'm saying. Sorry, I'm losing my voice. I'm not 100% sold on E-Rev technology, but I can see where there would be a market in it. So, all right, I've blabbed enough. Go listen to True North EVs. If you want to have your voice heard on this podcast, record a no more than 2-minute long clip of you talking about an article or a story that I missed, or maybe even adding some more context to a different story that I've already talked about. Tell me what you think of 2025. Tell me what you think of 2026. What are you excited about? What's your story? What got you into EVs? You can send those to me at Bodie, BODIE, at 918digital.com. You might need to upload them to like Google Drive and send me a link so that I can download them. Sometimes the files are too big for email. And I hope you all have a wonderful day. You can email me. I already gave my emails. You can follow me on LinkedIn. More and more people are following me on LinkedIn. It's Bodie Grimm. We have a website that's 918digital.com, just in case you were curious. And I'm on X, but I don't do anything on X, so it's 918digital. All right, everybody, thank you so much, and I will talk to you soon.
Take control of the numbers and supercharge your small business with Xero. That's Xero. With our easy-to-use accounting software with automation and reporting features, you'll spend less time on manual tasks and more time understanding how your business is doing. 87% of surveyed U.S. customers agree Xero helps improve financial visibility. Search Xero with an X or visit Xero.com/ACAST to start your 30-day free trial. Conditions apply.
AI agents are everywhere, automating tasks and making decisions at machine speed. But agents make mistakes. Just one rogue agent can do big damage before you even notice. Rubrik Agent Cloud is the only platform that helps you monitor agents, set guardrails, and rewind mistakes, so you can unleash agents, not risk. Accelerate your AI transformation at Rubrik.com. That's RUBRIK.com.
And now, a next-level moment from AT&T Business. Say you've sent out a gigantic shipment of pillows, and they need to be there in time for International Sleep Day. You've got AT&T 5G, so you're fully confident. But the vendor isn't responding, and International Sleep Day is tomorrow. Luckily, AT&T 5G lets you deal with any issues with ease, so the pillows will get delivered and everyone can sleep soundly, especially you. AT&T 5G requires a compatible plan and device. Coverage not available everywhere. Learn more at att.com/5G network.